5, 6, 7, 8.
Wow.
We're dancing into the life of Chuck. Hey everyone, I'm Derek and that's Noah, and welcome to this episode of A Bite Of, where we're talking about the life of Chuck.
Yay. Ooh, I would say very high up on my most anticipated list of this year for films. I mean, it has all the things I love.
Totally. This is a total Noah film. I mean, it's Mike Flanagan, it's Stephen King, it's Loki. I mean, it's all of them.
And I mean, just all of Mike Flanagan's cast is in this movie. Yes, we got to see the movie early. Very gracious for the people at Neon for sending us a screener. And also at the end of our review, Karen Gillan of Amy Pond fame, of Oculus, of The Life of Chuck. I got to speak with her for a little bit. They didn't let me use the video, which is it's sad. I'm sorry. But you that are listening to this in podcast form, it doesn't change for you. So continue on.
Hey, it's an A Bite Of exclusive interview with Karen Gillan.
Yeah, I was just very grateful that she took the time to speak with me in her very busy schedule of promoting this movie. Yes, very excited to talk about this movie. Before we get into it, make sure you're following us. It's Pride Month. So hi, queer creators here. Support your queer creators. Barely got that out. Subscribe, like, comment, all those amazing, wonderful things. Please do those. So going into this review, spoilers ahead.
Like hella spoilers.
We kept debating of like spoiling this movie because it's an experience that needed to be had. But you can't not spoil it, So spoilers ahead. Go see it and then come back.
Let us officially take a bite of The Life of Chuck, written and directed by Mike Flanagan, based on the novella by Stephen King. Worlds end with the power going out, a flood of memories, deathly premonitions, and dancing to your own true rhythm.
That's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Send that to Mike Flanagan.
I'm going to. He's going to put it on the posters.
Imagine.
A Bite of Pod, it's going to say.
The bald one.
Yes, exactly. So, sir, what did you think?
Ooh, indescribable. I don't want to hype this movie up too much because I think this is one of those rare movies that it needs to be experienced. Your expectations are going to do this because you have Stephen King, you have Mike Flanagan, you have everybody that's involved in this film, and you're going to expect something different than what you might get. It might not be everybody's flavor, but I think it's one of those movies that will make you think and you'll feel it way after you've seen it. And maybe you'll take a little bit with you throughout the day. When you find those little tiny things that bring you joy, it's like, Chuck did the same thing. I did too. It's just a spiritual movie. So I very much liked it. That's my very general thoughts. It's spiritual. It's great. Go see it. If you're watching this or listening to this and be like, I'm not going to go see it. Why not? Do yourself some good. Go watch it. What about you? Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So picture this.
I just said I didn't want to hype it up, but I'm like, it's a spiritual experience.
No, it's like, it's the greatest thing that's ever existed. It changed my life, but I don't want to hype it up. But okay, picture this. You're 39 years old. Okay. You have chest pains. You go to the hospital. You have to face your own mortality. And then about a week later, you watch The Life of Chuck. And in the best way possible, it makes you feel conscious of everything that you just went through and qualify it in a way that means life is short and that you should enjoy it.
I think we had a very unique experience with it. I'm sure we're not going to be the only ones and people can draw onto it. But since we had that scare with your health, that was like very scary. And then immediately, this was the very first thing that we watched aside from Shrek in the hospital. I think we're going to have a unique experience that maybe some of these viewers or listeners might not have. So I think we're conscious of that, but I don't know. I think it was the perfect time for us to watch it. So thanks.
I do want to say just, so when you first, like the movie starts off with a world ending, right? And people just watching their lives kind of crumble around them, but not knowing truly what's going on. And there is something to be said of, again, I wasn't at death's door. I didn't almost die, right? But I had something that could have led to possible death, right?
Well, right. If you didn't get it checked out, you could have.
I could have, right?
More of a chance than we would have liked.
True. And I think what's interesting is that when I'm sitting in the hospital and I'm having all these experiences, it does feel a little bit like your world could end. And you don't know why or what's necessarily going on because you're waiting a lot of the time. You're waiting for blood work, you're taking tests, you're waiting for a doctor to see you. And so it is this really interesting comparison of the literal world ending, but also your life ending, and how big of a question mark it all is, and how you never know what's truly waiting for you.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things of this movie. I think, people will take different things away from it, but one of the core things is, in the face of even knowing and not knowing, doing those little things that do bring you joy means so much more. And those are the things that are literally going to build the worlds and universes inside of you who is a person. It's not going to be the same as somebody else, but those little tiny moments. In this movie, there's a through line with dancing, right? And that's like one of the biggest set pieces. You've seen it in the trailer. It's on the poster. Tom Hiddleston doing the dance. I believe he did it on Graham Norton. It is the thing, right, for this movie. And it means so much when you see it. Yes, it's a long sequence. I didn't think it was... I wanted more. I could have been like, this could have been 2 hours of Tom Hiddleston dancing. I'm here for it. But just doing those little tiny things that do set those ripples, the past, present of you, of who you are, is very important. But I really like getting really into the movie. I think the structure of it, when I read the novella, it's in If It Bleeds. It's a collection of short stories from Stephen King, but it was something that just kind of stuck with me. And I'm like, this is interesting. Like, why is this one sticking with me? So when it was being made into a movie, the structure of it is odd because you start in Act 3 and the end of the movie ends in Act 1, which is technically the beginning of Chuck. So we're seeing the universe of Chuck die, and then we're getting how he got there. So it's definitely a feat that Flanagan and crew had to do, and I think they pulled it off really well.
Yeah, I agree. The thing that I've noticed about Mike Flanagan, and especially really enjoying his later works, right? I saw Oculus, and what's the one?
Dr. Sleep.
Dr. Sleep, I'll never recover from.
Fantastic.
Oh my God. What's the one that Kate is in where she's deaf? Did he do that horror movie?
Hush.
So I saw Hush, saw Oculus, those like kind of true slasher-y kind of horror things, and I thought they were good. But now as time has gone on, it really feels like he's honed his craft. And what I love so much about Mike Flanagan is that he loves the work that he's basing whatever it is on, and you can tell the care that he's taking with it. And, there is this Flanaverse, and there are these people, these actors that pop up in all of his works. And I think part of that is yes, he's building this universe or whatever, but I think he knows that he can trust them to bring these characters to life. Because the interesting thing is that, right, taking something like the life of Chuck, which is a novella in a collection of stories, and loving it so much and caring about it so much and creating it into a feature-length film, I think shows that he really wants to bring it to life, and therefore he's going to take care of it. And for Stephen King to, let that happen, I think is also, a sign of approval.
I think, Mike Flanagan has definitely now become like the go-to person for Stephen King adaptations. Like, he just gets it. And I think King knows that. Same thing with Edgar Allan Poe, with just any works.
Poe knows that.
And Poe does know that. But yeah, he does get it. And I think that he loves stories, and we love his stories when it's very centered around people. And it's like, yeah, there's horror and there's supernatural things that are going along with it, but he just gets people in the monologues. Look, if you like Midnight Mass, if you like any of the Hill House or Bly Manors, you're going to see some of that seep through this. It's just not as scary as some of those, but there is terrifying elements in this movie. Man, you'll get some monologues in this movie. Ooh, so good. Mm-hmm. So good.
Now, just looking at the story in itself, it really is a blending of genres here. And so it starts off with this almost apocalyptic sensibility that we're feeling. Then it gets into like a slice of life, Bildungsroman, following a child through their life, watching them grow up. And then there's also this sort of like mystical element to it. So how do you think those three or more genres fit together well? And do you think it was achieved in this?
Taking my fanboy self out of it, when I think of this story, right, it's hard. It's a hard story if you're going to sit there and try to really hyperanalyze it, because while it's called The Life of Chuck, you don't really get the life of Chuck. You see snippets, you see vignettes of Chuck and kind of what brought him to his ultimate end, unfortunately, very, very early. And so like when you think about that, and then you add in like, okay, so we got this like echoing through all of this of time, right? Of the calendar, the cosmic calendar. You kind of get that echo throughout the entire movie. Then you get the multitudes. But then there's like that supernatural element with his grandfather and the cupola in the house. So it's like there's a lot of layers to this, which could seem like a lot. But I think with the understanding of like you're kind of just getting snippets of it and you don't really need to know all the answers to everything, it works well. Could I say I wanted it to be longer? Yeah. For some of that stuff to be fleshed out a little bit? Totally. Would I think that Flanagan could have done this as a miniseries? Yeah. And I think he could have really fleshed it out. Ultimately, it did work well. It gave you some mystery. Some of that mystery, when you find it out, it's like, oh yeah, it's what I thought it was. And I think that's fine. I think that's totally fine for something like that to happen. What about you? Did you think it all worked?
Starting off where it starts off, you're just kind of trying to collect clues and figuring things out. Once you get that reveal of what's happening, I thought that really paid off. I loved seeing, one of my favorite parts of this was probably the least, supernatural part, which is seeing, I'm calling him Tween Chuck, played by Benjamin Pajak, where he discovers his love of dancing, and he sees his grandmother dancing in the kitchen, and he dances with the girl at the prom. And oh my gosh, it's just so lovely and so sweet. And it's not scary in any way, right? It's just watching this young boy find joy in life. And I think I just gravitated towards that. The only part that, maybe it needed to be explored more, maybe that was the problem, was the whole thing with the turret, right?
The cupola?
The cupola. Is that what it is? Sophia Coppola? Yeah. It's that to me, maybe it felt rushed. Maybe we knew what was happening already. I don't necessarily know if I needed it to be explained of why that was happening up there, but it seemed like the biggest, why is this in here? Yeah,
so the cupola part is obviously the room upstairs where his grandfather had an under lock and key and didn't want Chuck to go in there. And it seems like you get a premonition. I don't know how it works. Obviously, we don't know. But you get a premonition of somebody, even yourself, dying, like how they're going to die. His grandfather saw it. He saw his grandmother die. He saw his friend. He saw the neighbor kid. And then Chuck ultimately saw himself in the hospital bed, which, oh God, I don't know who the editor is for this or who makes those decisions, but some of just the layering and editing, especially when you see at the very end when Chuck sees himself, but you hear the heartbeat monitor, but you've heard it in the beginning. It's just so masterfully done. Yeah, I think like that stuff, I think we know what it is, right? It's like, it's just a part of this room that somehow is just supernatural and shows you how you're going to die. I don't like that part was the least interesting part to me, because when Chuck sees it and then you think back, okay, what's act 2 and 3? He kind of just wanted it to go away. He just leaves the room and he's like, okay, now I have answers of why I shouldn't have been in here. I know where my end is. What is going to happen in between? And one of the funniest things about that is when you think about it, it's like he became an accountant. But his grandfather really talked to him about like, dancing's not going to get you where you need to go. Numbers are magic. That monologue, Mark Hamill delivering this monologue was so well done, but it was almost like Chuck in the end did both of what his parents or grandparents instilled in him. He was able to dance with the busker, and then he was able to become an accountant that led him to finding the joy of dancing again. So there's this weird beauty in it, but it is a bummer.
Yeah, I think when you think about it in that way, it's almost like by that point in his life, maybe, we know he lost his parents, then he loses his grandparents, then he's on his own for a little bit. I think it's his paternal grandparents come and live with him, or maybe it's vice versa.
He also lost his unborn sister.
Right.
Had to throw that in there too.
So it's almost like when he sees his own death, it's like, well, what is one more death?
Yeah, and there's like this element of so much sadness, and he had a terrible start to his life. And I think there's it sneaks in there a little bit, like when you're like, oh, this is like incredibly sad, but also incredibly joyous. But yeah, he started real not great, great. Everybody he knows just kind of passed away, and then his grandparents are dealing with their child and unborn grandchild passing away, and now they're having to raise their child's child.
Right.
Just really.
Yeah, it's a macabre world, but you can find your own joy in it. But I do think that's the interesting part of knowing your end and experiencing all this sadness, but then going on to like just continue to live a pretty regular life, right? He was just at an accounting conference and decided to dance, and then felt the pain, and then knew it was coming. Right.
Oh God, it's so sad. It's so sad.
And you know, one of the things, I keep making this about me, but
wow.
But one of the things, like, it's funny, and it'll be a month tomorrow that I got the stent, and a lot of people always ask, "How are you?" You know, and what happened. And so
Fine.
I've told the story a lot. And someone said to me today, "Gosh, isn't it so weird that you were just living your life not knowing that there was this blockage in your heart?" And it is very much like that, where he's living his life and then bam, it's the beginning of the end.
And I think that's one of the points of this movie, right? Is that like, it sounds so cliche. It's like, you never know what's going to happen, and you don't. And even when in Chuck's shoes, you do know something is going to happen. Maybe he doesn't know when. He can see he's a little young. He doesn't know when, but you know, hopefully he lived his life as joyous or even as normal as you wanted it to be.
And I think that's that's another takeaway I think from this movie is you don't have to be a celebrity, right? You don't have to be an influencer with millions of followers. You could still be successful, and you can still find joy, even if it's just in those little achievements in your life. And I think that's what Chuck did, right?
Well, yeah. His grandfather said a few times, the waiting is the worst part. And I think when Chuck did see himself, I think maybe he made a conscious decision to like, maybe I'm not going to stress over this. I hope, you know, we lose a big chunk of Chuck's life.
From college to adult.
So we can only think that maybe he just kind of lived his life and continued. You know, he lost his grandparents ultimately as well. So he seemed okay-ish.
and from what we know, right, he was a successful accountant. He had a partner and a child. And so he made a life for himself. He made a family for himself. And maybe that was enough for him. Maybe that was the one thing he was always missing in his life, was just that stability of having that family.
Yeah, because he lost all of it constantly. You know, it's funny. We've talked a lot about Chuck, but Tom Hiddleston himself is not in the movie as much as you would think. This movie starts off very much without Chuck. You only see him as the mystery of like, who is this Chuck? Thanks for 39 years inside his universe, inside himself. You know, the beginning of the movie is him dying because everybody contains a universe inside of them. So there's so many players in this movie. Everybody from Kate Siegel, who we love, all the way to Matthew Lillard. There's there's people that do voice work that have been in the Flanaverse before.
Hamish Linklater, Carla Gugino.
So yeah, literally this could be his like magnum opus. This is like everybody he's really ever worked with is here. Even Baby Nell from The Haunting of Hill House is in this. When she came in those skates, I was like,
and she's like a teenager now.
She's so old. So it was really fun to see all that. But was there any like standout performances for you?
Well, like I said before, who I think is new to the Flanaverse, I thought Benjamin Pajak really did an incredible job for such a young actor, really carrying these scenes and adding so much heart to it. Another like person that I thought really brought a lot to it, and they're not on screen, was actually Nick Offerman as the narrator of this. There's something about his voice that I just find very soothing. And in this, it feels like he's almost telling you a tale of a life well lived.
He's very plucky. I don't know the right word to say it, because he's not narrating it like a normal narrator would narrate a movie. It's kind of like off the cuff, but like nonchalant, plucky. It really worked well for me.
Yeah.
He just has a great narrating voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. How about you? Who had some standout performances?
Well, I mean, they all did. I think everybody, even Carl Lumbly, who I think is the Undertaker, maybe inside Chuck, it talks to Morty. Oh my God. Morty and Felicia's story in there is just, I think, really beautiful and really sad. I loved that whole first act. I thought it was really good. There's a scene where Morty goes to find his ex-wife. And I think there's an interesting conversation there of like, when the world's ending, like, who do you want to be with? Like, what is the thing that you find comforting? And he goes, finds his ex-wife, who is Felicia. And there's just a scene where he gets to her house and there's ghost Chucks in all the windows. And as soon as she sees him, she's like, oh, thank God. And like that moment to me, I was like, this is so, like, that first act of the movie is like, it just says so much. Yeah. It's like, you just want to be with that person or in that place that you just like, okay.
It's when it all comes down to it, when it's the final moments, it's not about all the wrongs. It should be about all the rights, right? And when Marty and Felicia come together, that last second,
they're holding hands.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And when you find out what that last second is, it just gave me chills.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very good. I think structurally they did a really good job in telling this tale because the way it's told adds to the story. One of my favorite scenes in here, aside from the busker scene, which is just, it's just so joyful and it's amazing. I keep going back and forth between two monologues that I really like, that really stood out to me, but I got to give it to Kate Siegel and the I Contain Multitudes monologue that she tells like baby Chuck. It was just so beautifully done. And to see these people that he put inside of his universe that were in passing or made an impression in him, it was just really kind. And I don't know, I just love the fact that this teacher who tried to teach this class that wanted nothing to do with her, but this one student asked her and she was able to make an impression on him. And that's all that matters.
And I think that in that scene, like you're saying, she just needed someone to see her, but he also needed someone to see him.
They did it for each other.
And it was, a student and a teacher. And it's just it is a really beautiful moment. And when you're listening to her, the angle that we see as the viewer is that we are Chuck, right? And she's looking in our mind, in our eyes, and she's telling us all this stuff. And it's like, yes, I contain multitudes.
Yeah, I just love the, like, what's in between my hands? And he's like, my brain. I'm like, that was me. That was me.
Absolutely.
That still is me.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that scene.
Do you have any like standout scenes, I would say?
I keep going back to it. And maybe this is because I was a little boy who danced, but there is that beautiful moment when he gets to dance with the girl he has the crush on and they knock everybody's socks off. And you see Felicia in the background, right? She's just
doing
someone,
punch.
Yeah. She was just maybe a faculty member or a parent, but she made an impression on him and she lived in his mind. And so that whole scene and him not really getting any flack for being a boy who dances and just enjoying it. And even though his grandfather told him it would get him nowhere, he still knew that it brought him happiness.
Yeah. The whole scene, like I can't remember what the after school program was it like Spinners and Twirlers? Sounds about right. I loved all of that. I loved him learning how to dance and like the whole class. And then he ended up teaching the class how to moonwalk. It was just beautiful. But I loved, just the scene where you find out why Chuck started with the two fingers in the air. Oh, when you see his grandmother do it, because she just loved to dance and listen to music
Put on some rock music.
Yeah, maybe somebody her age didn't want to listen to. Oh, just so good. I think this is probably one of the happiest movies mostly that we've ever talked about.
But isn't that so interesting that it's like it brings us such joy, but it's about ends in some senses, right?
Well, it's told in reverse. So it's almost like we deal with the sad. It gets sad in the beginning, but it's like we deal with the sad, but then we get to see him as a little tiny kid.
Yeah.
Little tiny kid. Yeah. Oh man, I'm just so excited. Let us know what you think of this. If I had to rate it, I want to rate it. Let's rate it. We need to get better at rating things because what we're reviewing, that's what reviewers do. 4 out of 5. I think 4 out of 5. It's nearly like great and perfect, but there's just some things where I'm like, yeah, like the story itself doesn't really give a lot, and that's on purpose. And it's like part of me just wants more. But I think 4 out of 5 is where I'm at.
I give it multitudes. No, I give it. I'm actually gonna give it 4.5 stars out of 5.
Guys, this is like history making. It's a Stephen King story with Mike Flanagan, and Derek loves it.
Just, we're
winning.
Just when sometimes in life you see something or you read something just at the right time. And I think I saw this at just the right time.
Yeah. Well, if he didn't have his heart almost explode,
I wouldn't have seen it.
I wouldn't have been able to say he likes a Stephen King thing.
That's true. Listen, things in life happen and change your perspective.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. Yeah. Let us know what you think. If you saw it, if you're waiting to see it, why? But yeah.
And stay tuned for an interview. With Karen Gillan.
How can I forget? Yeah. It's not over yet, but it'll be over after the interview. So carry on. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. I want to say that this film was like at the top of my most anticipated list for this year.
Wow.
I adore it. I adore it so much. And also congratulations for getting People's Choice at TIFF. That's amazing.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that was wild and so exciting.
Well deserved. So I wanted to start with just kind of your initial thoughts when you read the script for the first time and getting to work with Mike Flanagan again after all these years. Because you did Oculus, in 2013?
Oh, yeah. I worked with Mike right at the beginning of his career, and he brought me over to America, literally got me my visa to be in America. So we were both, way younger and earlier in our careers. And I had such a brilliant experience doing Oculus. Like, I still look back on that and yearn to be back there doing that. I'm so nostalgic for it. And it was just such a brilliant time in my life. So I wanted to reunite with him for so long to kind of just get back to that sort of headspace again, because it was so great. And then I was like, when we're working together, I visited him on set and stuff. And then he was like, we will. And then he came to me with Life of Chuck. And I would have said yes without even reading it. But of course, I read the script and was like, oh, this is a no-brainer. It was just such a beautifully written script. And it made me kind of really examine my own life and how I'm spending my precious time living it. And I thought that's such a special project to be involved with.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where it makes you feel all the types of emotions, right? Of just, oh, what is it like going to be at the end? You don't know. Maybe you do know. And then who are those people and what's the joy that you find along that way? Or where do you want to be when that time eventually comes? And I think, and specifically Marty and Felicia do such an amazing job of, you guys kind of introduce this mystery, this tone, this world, and what's going on, right? You guys are the multitudes contained inside of Chuck. What went into bringing that character to life? Because this movie is told in reverse order, right? And you guys are the end, but you're also the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, from an outsider perspective, I was aware of all of that stuff. But when I was playing the character, I kind of just focused in on what she would genuinely be feeling in those moments. She wasn't aware of being in the head of somebody else or anything. She was genuinely just dealing with the end of everything. She's a nurse. And people all around her are giving up, and she's fighting hard to remain optimistic in a really dire situation. And then finally, she reaches out to her ex-husband, Marty, to feel love and comfort in her final moments. And yeah, it was just a really interesting thing to ask myself how I might feel at the end of everything. And so many different emotions came up.
In the very kind of end of that, you guys meet, you and your ex-husband, and you meet and you get to be together. And when she sees him, she's like, oh, thank God you're here. So in a previous interview, a question was asked, like, what was your joy? What is the joy that you find in your day to day? And you had said something about, it was like films, right? Films are your thing that brings you joys, creating them and being in them. Is that still how you feel now? And is there a film that brings you joy no matter what, anytime that you put it on?
Now my answer would be my daughter. I've probably become a mother since answering that question. But yeah, films absolutely still bring me joy. Actually, what's so fun is that I get to show her films for the first time now, the films that bring me joy, and I get to watch her enjoy them. So that's going to be even better because there's a whole other layer on top of it. But I'm going to say Little Shop of Horrors for me is
Oh,
my joy film. I just loved it as a kid. I thought it was called The Plant because my dad had recorded it off the TV and put a label on it that just said The Plant. And it was just my favorite film growing up.
that's amazing. And I love that you get to share that joy with your daughter, and then you get to see their joy of experiencing those films, your favorite films, for the first time.
Yeah.
That's so special. Is there, what was your first introduction to Stephen King? Like, are you a Stephen King fan? Do you read the books, or was this your kind of first dipping toes into the water?
I'm much more familiar with the film adaptations rather than the books. But yeah, a fan of those, absolutely. Like The Shining is probably my favorite film now.
Yes.
Love it. But I love so many of his adaptations. Shawshank Redemption, and also I love Gerald's Game. I thought that was a brilliant movie, another Mike Flanagan one.
Yeah.
And so hard to adapt that story because so much of it takes place in the main character's head. And she's talking to versions of herself. But Flanagan found a way to put it on the screen.
Yeah. As he does, right? He likes to adapt the unadaptable and somehow
Yeah.
can figure it out. So I have like two more questions for you. What do you hope audiences take away from The Life of Chuck?
I hope that they go away and ask themselves the same questions that I asked myself after reading it for the first time, which was, I asked myself, like, am I spending my time the way that I'll be happy about when it's the end of everything and I can look back, and am I doing anything that I could be proud of, and am I finding enough moments of joy? I think those are valuable things to ask yourself.
I feel like a lot of media doesn't actually ask us that, right? It's always we need more
Mhm.
things that are doing this to think
Yeah, it
about
feels
that.
like it's coming at the right time.
Yes, yes, very much. And then you're in the MCU. You've been in the Hooniverse, which I still have to watch the finale. It's out today. I haven't been able to watch it yet. Um,
Oh,
and then I'm so excited. I saw that you were on Unleashed, so that's right. The rumor says that you're in Doctor Who Unleashed episode that's
that's
coming out.
like the sort of a documentary. Yes.
Yes. Ooh, okay. Very excited.
Yeah.
So MCU Universe, the Flanaverse, as they've coined it. So you've been in two kind of properties that have Tom Hiddleston in them, but I don't
Mhm.
think you've shared a scene with him yet. Is there like, are you actively avoiding him? No, I'm just kidding. You just
I
had
like to
to.
be in films with Tom, but I will not be on set with him.
It's in my
I'm
contract.
totally kidding. I would
Absolutely not.
love to finally be on screen with him, for God's sake. I'm such a fan of his work. I think he's a brilliant, brilliant actor. And it would be nice to finally share a scene with him in one of our films.
Yeah, not just the ghost kind of apparition behind him in the window in this movie.
Yeah, exactly. The
Yeah.
real deal. I want the
Yeah.
real Tom.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time to answer these questions. And I cannot wait to see what you do next. And if you're going to be in the next Flanagan thing that's coming out, that would be amazing. Thank you so much.
Well, who knows? Fingers crossed. Thank you.
Yes.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.